I'm sure most of you aren't finding 21 combos of absolute air on this board, 48 combos on this board, and 12 combos on the double flush straight draw board. I'm going to show you today why and how to implement these into your game. We're going to start with the why, and then we're going to go over a few hands I played to kind of demonstrate this. So for the why, if we look at this King 8-3 board where we Cbet in a single raise pot, we raise from the button, the big blind calls, and on the 7 diamonds turn, let's take a look at what kind of air we're betting. In terms of like natural draws, we're betting most our flush draws. We check back some of the ace high, stronger ones just given their additional showdown value, and I'll of course go over in a little bit why we're mixing a lot of these flush draws in our range. If we look at straight draws, you can see even like the open-enders, I'm sure most of you aren't checking back half these. There is a good reason for it, and I'll show you here in a second. Now the fun part, let's take a look at the absolute nothing part of the range, right? Like Queen 9 of hearts, Queen 10 of spades, Queen 10 offsuit, just literally pure air. There's really no additional draws here with these hands. And that is 36 combos on this board, so this is not insignificant. So there's 3 reasons that we do this. Reason 1, we leverage a very strong range. We're going for a polarized bet. So our opponent, if we take a look here, if we go ahead and bet, they got to fold nearly 60% of the range. So we're just leveraging the strong polarized range. We're sneaking in, sweeping in some of these low-end bluffs that have no equity just because we just generate folds right off the bat. Reason 2, and I think this is an underestimated reason, is the additional board coverage we get when we check back becomes very important. So let me show you what happens when we check back in theory, and then let me show you what happens if we decide to just, well, we have a strong range, I'm just going to bet all my flush draws and all my straight draws and see what happens. So here's where we check back turn, and river is a very wet connecting river with the flush and straights coming in. But our opponent isn't overbetting. You can see right here, only overbetting 9% of the time, mostly small, medium bets. They do have an advantage here. It's not extreme. With the expected value, just a slight edge. And one of the reasons is if we look at our range, we have 21 combos of straights or better, and our opponent has 18. So we've successfully balanced our range in a way that our opponent cannot take advantage of it. So what happens if we bet all those draws and we come to the river with more of these random Queen 10s and no flush draws? So let's take a look at that. So here's where we didn't protect our range. You can see same river. Now we only have 5 combos of straight or better. Our opponent still has 18. So we no longer have this strong part of the region. So what happens? Look, our opponent is now overbetting 34% of the time. A large percent of the time they get to overbet, and now look at the expected value, nearly 2-to-1 advantage. So now they have a hammerlock in the hand, and we have unfortunately got to ourselves where we're unbalanced. And if you think, well, how are they going to figure out if I'm betting all my flush draws and all my straight draws? I think most good regular players are going to be aware that if you're a weaker regular and you're not finding these balances, that they can take advantage of and just hammer large bets with all their bluffing range and take advantage of it. So the second reason protecting our range and check back is really important. But there's actually a third reason why we bet these random air cards on the turn. So the third reason here is where we bet the turn and then the river's 5, and what happens on this river is the theory sim, we bet a lot of these random hands. So let's take a look at our bluffing range. And you can see like a lot of these random like Queen 9, these non-diamond like high cards here are actually betting, and we're not betting the more straightforward draws. The reason for this is because we're now blocking a lot of the folds here. These weaker King X, they're gonna have 9-10 themselves. So we end up blocking the folds with these more, and the diamond missed flush draws as well, region. So we don't want to bet those as much. So when we put these low end bluffs in our range, it gives us more ammo for the river. And let's take a look at when we didn't balance those hands in. This is the sim where we did not balance, and you can see what's happening is now we're choosing these combos, which we didn't really want to choose. We're still not touching the 10-9. You can even see we're betting flush, brick flush draws a little bit more. We really just don't want to be betting these combos typically just because they're interacting with the folding range too much. It's fine, but it's still, this is the number 3 reasons probably a little less valuable than the first 2, but it's still another consideration. There's a lot of these rivers where some of the draws come in, or we're just totally blanking or totally blocking the folding region. And having these nothing type hands in a range, you can see we don't have any of these. Okay, so let's go over some actual hands I played to kind of demonstrate this. Okay, here's at 600 NL, and we go ahead and raise from the button, and we continue on this flop here with the Cbet, and on this turn, there's a lot of flush draws, there's a lot of straight draws, so it almost feels like you don't want to be betting something like our hand that has very little equity, but reason one, like I said, is we leverage a strong range. And this hand in particular, we're blocking a lot of continues from our opponent, a lot of flush draws from their region. And we can generate a lot of folds from Queen 8, Jack 8, so a lot of 6x, some even 10x. There's a decent chunk of this range that we can just start generating folds, a lot of this 1-pair region. So we do go for the bet, and we fortunately get the fold. Next one here, at 600 NL again, we go for the raise. We go for a small bet on the flop, and this one has a bit of a different texture than we looked at today. We have complete air, of course, and we go for the bet, and one of the benefits of these middle cards, which we actually bet at quite a high frequency, a lot of these type of hands, is if you think about our opponent's range, they 3-bet a lot of their stronger ace-x, but they call a lot of their middling ace-jack, ace-10, ace-9, ace-8 region. So we're blocking a lot of the trips region, and we have overcards to 6x, 4x, which we're going to be putting to a difficult decision. So it's actually a really good hand to leverage here. We don't have a ton of equity, but we're doing a really good job of blocking some of these hands. We can definitely barrel some rivers like we talked about before. On the third reason, this is going to be a great hand to barrel river. We do get the fold right away, which is great. And let's go over one more. So this one at 400 NL, we go for raise from the cutoff this time. And we just start off with a range bet. And these type of King X hands makes excellent barrels. And we actually go for the overbet because the 7's kind of a blank turn. So a lot of our strong Queen X plus sets, 2 pairs, it's time to go for a polarized sizing. And this is where we really, on steroids, leverage a strong range that you put all this 1-pair high cards to a very difficult spot in these King X region with really no equity are great because we're blocking our opponent's one of their stronger 1-pair regions, which would be king, queen in this case. We do have an overcard still to a lot of the 1-pair region as well. So it's actually a pretty great hand. And like I said, the third reason too, it's just barreling river. It's going to make a lot of times a really nice barrel. Again, we generate the fold, so it was fortunate for us there. Hopefully you have a better understanding of why we want to be betting complete air Cbet on the turn. Pros are doing it. The great regs are doing it. And if you're not, you need to find these because this is very common. These aren't unique boards. This is something that comes up a lot. And again, we're leveraging a strong range. We're balancing back our checking range. And we just get some nice hands to kind of barrel river. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you guys can like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you later. Bye-bye.